G'day and welcome to the Fred Paul Show on ADH TV. Today is Keep Cash Alive Day in Australia, so grab your ATM card, withdraw some cash and use it to buy whatever the hell you want without a bank taking a cut or, more importantly, the government knowing what you bought and where you bought it from. If we don't send a message to the government and its collaborators in the parasitic finance industry that we want to retain what is left of our financial freedom, then we will take one more step towards becoming slaves to the government. We took a giant step in that direction just last week when the government rammed digital ID legislation through the Senate without a debate. Here is what Liberal Senator Alex Antic said about the legislation being passed without debate on Thursday.
I've just returned from the Senate chamber tonight, and in extraordinary scenes, the Labor government have rammed through their digital ID bill. It's now passed the Senate. I opposed it. The Coalition opposed it as well, of course. And we now see this bill move on to the House in the next sitting period, presumably, where it'll be taken to a vote there. This is really, really bad stuff. First of all, the bill itself is bad, and in my view, it will set the tone for our digital future. I mean, at some point, it's going to be very difficult for people to resist using this in order to access businesses and services.
And here is Senator Malcolm Roberts of the One Nation Party elaborating on that by referring to the concerns raised before a legislative committee.
The committee report on the digital ID bill was a travesty. The committee made a recommendation to pass the bill which was simply not supported by the evidence they received during the inquiry. Witness after witness testified this rancid, evil bill failed to protect privacy, failed to establish the ID will be voluntary, failed on human rights grounds and failed on technical grounds. One blackout and the whole thing comes crashing down. Yet all these valid criticisms from leading organisations who, unlike the government, know what they're talking about, was simply ignored.
And here is the government's official response to those alarming concerns. The government wants us to believe that digital IDs are not only inevitable, they are also benign and beneficial. Federal Minister Katy Gallagher said in September, as she was launching this hasty process, that us plebs need not worry about it because the digital ID will be, quote, secure, convenient, voluntary and inclusive, unquote. What? Secure, like the databases at Optus and Medibank, which were subject to huge hacks in 2022? Convenient, like the red and green tape that the government uses to tie the nation in knots? Voluntary, like the government's COVID vaccines and compulsory superannuation payments? And inclusive, well, like the housing market that the government has designed to deny young people a chance to buy their own home? These are the standards of secure, convenient, voluntary and inclusive set by this government. And they are the standards by which this legislation should be measured. But even if your scepticism isn't aroused by the unchallenged spin attached to this legislation, then it should be aroused by who is presenting it. Katy Gallagher is the Minister for Finance. This comes under her remit because it is stage one of the real objective, which is to introduce a central bank digital currency, or CBDC. You might not have heard, but the Reserve Bank conducted 15 trials of a CBDC last year involving real people trading real goods and services, but paying for it with unreal currency. Neither side of politics has ever asked you if you think this is a good idea, just as they didn't ask you if you wanted neighbourhoods filled with people who dislike and disrespect Australian values, or whether you minded the Department of Foreign Affairs sending $46 million of your money to Gaza, where everything, including Australian aid, is controlled by the homicidal rapists in Hamas. They didn't ask you if you wanted to pay more tax on popular cars while subsidising battery-powered ones. They didn't ask you if the government should sacrifice farming land for solar panels. And last Thursday, they didn't ask your representatives in the Senate what they think of the digital ID legislation. But while the government is laying the foundation to keep constant surveillance on you, the hard-working patriotic taxpayer, it is revealing itself to be remarkably blasé about the refugee murderers and rapists who are at large in the community as a result of the High Court's NZYQ decision in November last year. Check out this video. It is Victorian Liberal Senator James Paterson trying valiantly to find out where these dangerous criminals are. The original exchange went on for 15 minutes, but because you're a busy person with more important things to do, I've edited it down to 2.5 minutes.
The NZYQ cohort, how many of them are in the community right now without ankle bracelets?
So 152
152?
People that have been released from immigration detention and are now on a bridging visa. Of those 152, I've got the number with bracelets, so 79 of those individuals have an electronic monitoring condition on their visa.
79 out of 152, okay. So 73 are without ankle bracelets. Okay, so of the 73, what crimes have they previously committed? Are any of them among them the 7 murderers, for example?
Senator, I don't have that breakdown of data in front of me.
I said that these were issues that I was going to raise and that I expected answers to. I also asked it to your colleagues at the AFP. Item number 5. The latest figures regarding alleged crimes committed by the NZYQ affected cohort, their detention status and any applications for community safety detention orders or community safety supervision orders.
When you asked a series of questions about murderers, sex offenders, violent offenders without ankle bracelets in the community, we took that on notice and we obviously are endeavouring to get that information.
So you don't even have those either?
Senator, the nature and the details of the charges and the realities in the states and territories that they change constantly. People are charged, the charges change, charges are dropped, people are remanded in custody, people are bailed. So we will come back to you on notice, but it will change. The number will change potentially daily in terms of the amount of offences being committed and those sorts of things.
It might not be of interest to you, but I assure you it's of interest to the community to know whether there are any people who previously committed a murder who are now free in the community without even ankle bracelets on. That is a legitimate issue of public interest. And that won't change. They've committed a murder or allegedly committed a murder, and that will always be the case. And all we need to know is, are they wearing ankle bracelets?
We have to be careful about privacy as well and identifying individuals. And so we are working through these issues, we are working through those questions on notice, and we will come back to you on notice as we committed to.
I'm not interested in anyone's names. I don't want to know who they are, where they're from. I just want to know, how about the sex offenders? There were 37 of those. Are any of them in the community at the moment not wearing an ankle bracelet?
And we took that on notice.
And it looks like officers are trying to obfuscate in this committee and not provide information which is in the public interest.
I don't think it's fair of Senator Paterson to be accusing public servants of obfuscating or looking like obfuscating.
Well, that is what it looks like, Minister.
It might be.
That is my view.
It's possibly not just a coincidence that the government is refusing a debate about digital ID legislation that will increase its power of surveillance over you at a time when record numbers of people, including murderers and rapists, are in the community on bridging visas, effectively unsupervised. Here's my prediction. There will be a time soon when the government admits that the immigration situation is such a schmozzle that the only way to fix it is to force everyone living in the country to all get themselves a digital ID. And law-abiding people like you and I will go, yeah, well, that makes sense. At least we'll know whether there are refugee criminals in the neighbourhood. And then, viewers, these power-mad central controllers will finally have us where they want us.
Those listening at home may be wondering how an individual could avoid being drawn into this net of data, trading and surveillance. The simple answer is you can't. This is not voluntary. 10 million Australians have a MyGov ID. Most of those were forced into it to access Centrelink benefits. Cruel. There are another 2 million Australians who are forced to get a MyGov ID to register as a company director. Socialists love control. Socialism needs control. For socialism to exist, there must be control. The government knows control will be used by government to identify people who say mean things on social media to speed up enforcement of our new laws against saying home truths to crazy or dishonest people.